Welcome back to another disturbing journey in the southern underworld. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to please like, comment, subscribe, and share this devilish delight with your horror friends and fam. Engagement is essential, and it helps our little channel grow. Hungry for a tale that'll stick to your ribs? Well, tonight's menu features a dish best served cold, with a side of insatiable dread. Join us as we follow Karen, a woman who discovers that you truly are what you eat, and sometimes what eats you. In this gastronomic nightmare, gluttony isn't just a sin, it's a death sentence. So pull up a chair to our table of horrors, but don't expect to leave satisfied. After all, in this story, having a full plate is the last thing you want. Prepare your palate and stomach for Feast of the Famished, where all you can eat takes on a terrifying new meaning. The harsh sound of Karen's fork scraping her porcelain plate filled her empty apartment. It was a lonely noise, breaking the otherwise complete silence. Her eyes stared blankly at the empty plate in front of her. A tiny smear of tomato sauce was the only indication she'd eaten. The meal had been woefully insufficient, like all her meals lately. Hunger gnawed at Karen from inside, an insatiable beast demanding to be fed. It chewed at her relentlessly, making her jump from her chair so abruptly that it almost tumbled. She hurried to the refrigerator and pulled its door open with unnecessary force. A wave of cold air hit her skin. The cool made Karen shiver, and a feeling of dread washed over her as she surveyed what was inside the fridge. Leftovers were first on Karen's list: stale Chinese food, half a lasagna that was more crust than filling, and remnants of roast chicken, all quickly consumed by Karen. Raw ingredients were next. She bit into a stick of butter as if it were an apple, without noticing or caring about the oily residue on her tongue, or how it made every breath taste like rancid milk. She cracked eggs one by one and swallowed them whole, shells and yolks alike sliding down her throat indiscriminately. The taste didn't matter as she crammed food into herself. Chewing felt like wasted time, but swallowing was all important. Get the food down, as much as possible. The ache within didn't lessen. It grew stronger with each mouthful she devoured. Days blurred together. Calls from work went unanswered. Her phone buzzed non-stop somewhere in the living room. The doorbell rang repeatedly, her worried neighbors relentlessly pounding on her door, screaming for her to please open up. But Karen ignored it completely, her life taking on a singular focus: to get down as much food as possible, eat. Her stomach swelled. The skin stretched taut over the swollen mass. Pain pulsed with each difficult swallow, but she continued eating without stopping. Catching a glimpse of herself in the hallway mirror showed a disheveled figure covered in sauces and torn clothes. Karen was unrecognizable. As midnight neared, Karen lay on the kitchen floor surrounded by empty containers and discarded wrappers, overstuffed, in pain, but still hungry for more. Her shallow breaths strained. Moving was painful, but the hunger was stronger than any physical discomfort. Dragging herself across the cold tiles, she reached for the pantry, knocking over bottles and boxes in her frantic search. Flour, sugar, anything to fill the emptiness. A sudden sharp pain stabbed her abdomen, causing Karen to cry out in pure agony as she frantically pulled at her shirt to relieve the increasing pressure. Her stomach bulged abnormally, the skin stretched to its limit. A gurgle sounded as a thin red line quickly widened into a gruesome rupture. Blood and bile sprayed from the wound, followed by partially digested food that spilled onto the tiles in a disgusting pile. The smell hit Karen hard, but even now, even as her body was breaking down, there was still the persistent thought: food. Karen's eyes bulged with terror as her body disintegrated. She struggled to keep herself intact, but it was a losing battle. Her flesh split open, her organs burst, and their contents oozed onto the floor. The room grew quiet except for the sound of her innards hitting the tile and her dwindling breaths. Flies swarmed in from an open window, drawn to the horrifying scene. Finally, her hunger had been satisfied. Days later, Detective Brian Ramirez stood at the entrance to Karen's apartment, fighting his gag reflex. 15 years on duty had not prepared him for this, decay and rot of an overwhelming proportion. "What happened here?" he mumbled through a handkerchief he'd pulled over his nose and mouth. His partner, Andrea Chen, picked her way through the mess on the floor. "A neighbor reported it," she said. "Said they hadn't seen her in days and noticed the smell." Ramirez scanned the chaos. Overturned furniture, broken dishes, food wrappers everywhere, and there in the center of it all were Karen's remains. Jesus, he muttered under his breath. It looks like she exploded. Chen squatted near Karen's body, a grim expression on her face. I've never seen anything like this before. Looks like her stomach ruptured. Ramirez frowned as he prodded an empty pizza box with his pen. Could it be some kind of eating disorder? Maybe, Chen replied, standing up again, but I've never seen consumption like this before. They waited for crime scene techs to arrive. Ramirez couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. Something about this felt wrong. Across town, in a dimly lit office, a man in an expensive suit read through the police report on his computer screen with satisfaction. Perfect, he murmured to himself as he minimized the window to reveal a spreadsheet of names and addresses. Karen's name was highlighted in red. Complete. He hovered over the keyboard, selecting the next test subject. Soon, the world would experience true hunger, and his company would provide them with a solution, for a price, of course. He pressed Enter, initiating the next step of his plan. Somewhere in the city, another woman reached for a snack, unaware that she was about to develop an uncontrollable appetite. Her famished feast was just beginning. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.